So coming up this weekend, we are going to be having UFC Atlanta headlined by Kamaru, Usman, and Joaquin Buckley. I think this is going to be a great card, but before we do get into it, I do need to address the elephant in the room. That is, of course, I am dressed like I am a character of Star Wars, and the reason why is because I'm cold. I'm just wearing a hoodie, guys. I need to. It's freezing. I'm actually sick as well. Unfortunately, during my exam period, last Friday, I was actually diagnosed with a viral infection. So I've been kind of fighting that for the last week or so, slowly getting better, and hopefully I can get better by the time my last exam rolls around next Monday. At the time of me recording this, I have actually done 2 exams so far. I've got 2 exams to go. I'm pretty confident I passed the 2 exams, but tomorrow is going to be a tough one. It's structural engineering, and I will be honest, it is very hard to focus on study when you are sick. So I do apologize if this video is a bit poor. I feel like I might lose my train of thought quite a lot because I do struggle to focus a lot at the moment. Just getting sick, it's not fun. If you guys know me, you've followed the channel for the last few years, you will know that my immune system is something that science cannot explain. I don't think every single time it gets cold, I get sick. Every time, without fail. It could be a cold, it could be the flu, it could be a viral infection. I don't know. It just happens. So yes, and with that being said as well, I think that a lot of you guys are probably going to be very disappointed in me. I'm not going to be doing a video prediction for the PFL this week. The reason is, of course, you know, I've kind of got to study. I'm getting this one out right now because I will be honest, I caught myself doing absolutely nothing for quite a few hours straight. So I thought I'd better do this, feel like I've done something, and then I can get back into my studies. But there's no PFL video. BetSam is going to be doing a PFL video though, so shout out to BetSam for doing that for me. He's going to be doing that on the We Want Picks channel, so if you do check out the We Want Picks channel over the next couple of days before the PFL event does take place, he's going to put one on there. I did do a quick article last night on the We Want Picks website, which of course, if you did want to support me during this trying time of potentially failing exams and being ill, you can sign up to with the code ARTEM to get 10% off your first membership. And with that being said, I think we get into the card after I talk about this poster. And I will be honest, is it just me that's seeing this? But I feel like this is like a pretty awesome poster. It's a very, very basic, I guess you could say. But it kind of reminds me of like a racing poster. Like it's almost like a movie poster for like a racing movie or something. I don't know if it's the font that's doing it for me. I'm pretty confident it is, but I actually really do quite like this poster. It's very basic. I don't think you could pull it off every single weekend, you know, because I think you would get pretty sick of just seeing the same 2 sort of posters over and over again. But I like this as like a one-off, you know, sort of style. It's quite nice. It's a good change from what we're normally used to. So now let's get into the card, guys. I'm going to be kind of fast with it. Vanessa Demopoulos is going to be taking on Jamey-Lyn Horth here at 125 pounds. I think that's the most important part of this fight, is the fact that it is at 125. Demopoulos is too small for 115. She's going to be way too small for Jamey-Lyn Horth here, who is a pretty big flyweight. You know, she came in on short notice at 135, and she looked bigger than Hayley Cowan on short notice, and now at 125, she's probably one of the bigger flyweights that we do have on the roster, taking on one of the smaller strawweights on the roster. Demopoulos needs to get the fight down to the ground if she wants to win a fight. I think that Horth's takedown defense and size advantage in that aspect should keep the fight on the feet, where Horth is pretty good, and Demopoulos is not really. So I like Horth to win a decision. We can now move up to Phil Rowe, taking on Ange Loosa. I like Ange Loosa in this one. Not that confident in it though, I will be honest, but I like Ange Loosa's like ability to mix up the fight. You know, we've seen Ange Loosa go out there before and get takedowns. He's a very pressure forward fighter. Phil Rowe likes to use his tools at range and fight from range, kickbox from range, and Ange Loosa's going to get in your face and just not really allow you to do that. So I like Ange Loosa to win this fight by decision. I apologize for that break in the action. We're now going to get going to Ricky Simone versus Cameron Smotherman. Smotherman's taking this fight on short notice here. I think it's a bad matchup for him, honestly. Smotherman I do like a lot. I have kind of talked about him reminding me a lot of Nate Diaz with his accent and his personality. But stylistic-wise, Smotherman's a very small guy for 135. I know he is listed at 5'9", but he is not a big 5'9" at all. And Simone, despite us not really seeing a lot of it recently, he got a quick KO against Javid Basharat, and then of course he was struggling to get the takedowns in his last few fights. But Simone is a good wrestler. He is a very good volume wrestler, like a chain wrestler. He wants to shoot takedowns over and over again. That's going to disrupt Cameron Smotherman. Now, Smotherman's a very good technical boxer, but I just think that in this fight, Ricky Simone, I know that the chin should hold up against a guy like Smotherman. I think he should be able to get the takedown. So I'm going to go with Simone here, and I'm going to go with Simone. I think he actually finds a finish against the very short notice Smotherman. I just think it's a very bad matchup for Cameron, so I'm going to go with Simone in this fight. And now we have Cody Durden fighting against Jose Ochoa. This is a very tough fight to call. I think I am picking Cody Durden. He's the underdog listed on Tapology, and he's plus 160 right now on Bet Online. I'm going with Durden. I feel like the reason why Ochoa could be the favorite is actually because of Cody Durden's fight against Matt Schnell. Now, yes, he did win this fight, but Matt Schnell was piecing him up. And Matt Schnell's a tall, rangy guy at 125 pounds, just like Jose Ochoa really is. Jose Ochoa has to shoot a box style. He is going to fight from range. He's going to use Muay Thai. He's going to use kicks and knees, and he's going to try and piece apart Cody Durden. But the thing about Ochoa is, in my opinion, I've just never seen Ochoa have to deal with a wrestler like Durden. Durden's a guy that's going to shoot for takedowns over and over and over again, and I can trust in Durden to be able to do that. Now, the problem with Durden is his cardio really let me down against Joshua Van in that fight. He did find a lot of success early against Van in the first round, getting the takedowns, but he just gassed out, man. So if Ochoa can defend takedowns better than I think he can, then yeah, there's definitely a chance that he can gas out Cody Durden and take over in the second and third round, because Ochoa does hit hard. He was giving Lana Kavanagh a lot of problems on the feet, but I think that Durden should be able to just go out there and get the takedowns over and over again as a pretty big underdog in this fight. And now we can move up to Malcolm Wellmaker versus Kris Moutinho after another break in the action. Because I am ill, guys, I can't really talk for that long without having to cough, but we move on. We fight through Malcolm Wellmaker versus Moutinho. I know this is a very random matchup for a lot of people, but word on the street was that they were trying to find Malcolm Wellmaker an opponent, and apparently a lot of people have actually been turning down fights against Malcolm Wellmaker. So the UFC went to Kris Moutinho, and Kris Moutinho, he's just a kind of guy that's never going to decline a fight. He's been in the UFC before, unfortunately got knocked out by Guido Canetti after having that performance against Sean O'Malley where he just kind of toughed it out for 3 rounds. But since then, he's been on the regional scene. He is on a 5-fight win streak. He got a win over Johnny Campbell, a guy that had actually beaten him in 2019, I believe. And then aside from that, he has been beating a couple of other guys as well on the regional scene. I guess most notably, Mateus Silva's probably his best win on there. But the thing about Moutinho that I've been watching him do is it doesn't look like he's got a good way to be able to beat Wellmaker. And I feel like actually if you watch his most recent fight against Campbell, a lot of this period of time he is standing there at range, not throwing anything. And if you do that against a tall sniper bantamweight like Wellmaker, who's got so much power, I think you're just going to kind of lead yourself to get knocked out. Now, I do understand that he didn't really get knocked out by O'Malley, and this is a similar stylistic matchup because Wellmaker and O'Malley are both tall, rangy strikers. And the way he got knocked out by Guido Canetti was in the pocket. But I think that Wellmaker's just got that sniper power, man. He can fight from range and he can get power shots from range. He's got a brutal KO win in the UFC against Cameron Simon. So I think that Wellmaker does knock out Kris Moutinho here. I don't really know how Moutinho wins. That's kind of the thing about this fight. And Wellmaker's like minus 2,400, which is crazy. Now we've got Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. I feel like this is a super random matchup, I'll be honest. But, given Michael Chiesa's age, I guess it does make sense, but we know what McGee wants to do. McGee wants to wrestle, and we know that Chiesa wants to grapple. So I think that the reason why some people are trying to pick McGee here is because they think that he can control Chiesa for 3 rounds, but I don't think that McGee can control Chiesa for 3 rounds without getting caught in something. Now, I know that McGee is a very tough guy to finish. He's never been submitted before in his career. He's only been knocked out a couple of times in his career. But I think that Chiesa, honestly, at this point in his career, probably could be the first one to do it. So I am going to pick Michael Chiesa to be the first one to submit Court McGee in his career. And now we have Paul Craig taking on Rodolfo Bellato. I've said it before and I will say it again. I'm not that sold on Bellato's skill set, I will be honest. He's a pretty good grappler. I think the striking is a little bit overrated. But with that being said, I do think he just knocks out Paul Craig. Paul Craig, we have just kind of seen almost a regression in skill set. I don't know if you could call it a regression, or maybe the modern day of MMA has kind of caught up to the one-dimensional grapplers. You know, like these one-dimensional grapplers don't really work anymore. And although Bellato I don't really consider to be like a top level guy, and probably is one of the lower level guys Paul Craig has fought in the last couple of years, Paul Craig's never improved on anything, you know? He's never improved on his wrestling, he's never improved on his striking, and for that reason, it's kind of just led to the results that he's in today. Now, the thing is, I was commending Paul Craig for years, saying that the thing about Paul Craig is he knows he's not a good striker, he knows he's not a good wrestler, so it doesn't matter. Paul Craig wants to fight on the ground and he'll get it there so he can grapple. But the thing is now, at this point in his career, maybe in hindsight you could almost say, is it just doesn't really work against the modern MMA. And I think that Rodolfo Bellato should be able to defend whatever takedowns Paul Craig tries to go for. And Bellato's a good grappler himself, he is. But I think in the feet, that's kind of where Bellato's going to have the success. I think he's going to be able to hit harder than Craig, and I think he is going to find the knockout. Now, Menifield takes on Oumar Sy. Odds for this fight are crazy. I didn't realize Sy was a minus 500 favorite when he's coming off a bad performance, I think. I don't think he looked that good against Da Woon Jung. I mean, he looked human. He looked great against Tuka Tokos, but he looked very human against Da Woon Jung. Sy's good everywhere, though. That's the thing. He has had a career in KSW where he beat some of the best guys that KSW could have offered him at the time. And we know that Sy can wrestle. We know that he can strike. He did look a little bit flat-footed against Da Woon Jung. He did get tagged a couple of times as well in that matchup, and you don't really want to do that against Alonzo Menifield, who can be pretty low volume, but just does hit hard. That's kind of Menifield's game. He just hits hard. He doesn't really have super technical striking. He can wrestle, but it's not like he's just going down and diving for the hips. You know, he really wants to get the clinch, and then he'll try and get some sort of like strength throw or like a trip or something along those lines from there. And Menifield just had that close fight against Julius Walker, you know, who is not a striker at all. And Walker was finding a lot of success on the feet. So I think that Sy can win this one here. Menifield's always going to be dangerous, but at the same time, like, I don't really know how to say it without being too blunt, but just Menifield's not that great, you know, at anything. He just hits really hard. I think as long as Sy can avoid the big shot, Sy's the more technical fighter. He's the better wrestler. He's the better grappler, I think. Maybe not the better wrestler purely, but the better grappler for sure. I think Sy should be able to get it done by decision here. Brundage takes on Mansur Abdul-Malik. A fight of some controversy, I guess. Because Jacob thinks that Brundage wins. I've seen a lot of people kind of commenting on that. And I think you can make an argument for Brundage to win this fight. I do. But I am still picking Mansur Abdul-Malik to win, and I am still picking Mansur Abdul-Malik to win by knockout. Here's the thing about Mansur, man. This guy, he hits hard. It doesn't matter if the fight's on the ground. It doesn't matter if the fight is on the feet. Mansur Abdul-Malik is going to hit hard. That power will get you far enough in the UFC at middleweight division until you kind of reach the top 15 sort of level guys, I think, in this division. I think that Mansur Abdul-Malik has a lot of potential. I think there is still a lot of holes in his game, though, which we haven't fully seen exposed so far, I don't think. But Mansur Abdul-Malik, I think, is going to struggle just against like a very good technical striker that can defend the takedowns. You know, because Mansur Abdul-Malik's striking, it's not technical, it's not really great, but he does have a lot of power, he does have a lot of explosivity, and we see that so far in his run in the UFC. A lot of KOs in short shots against Nick Klein. These wins here on the regional scene, he just took these guys down and just smoked them with ground and pound. It was ridiculous. Brundage is good, though. Brundage can defend takedowns. He did show some good takedown defense against Bonacle in moments. He showed some pretty good boxing against Julian Marquez. The thing about Brundage, though, is I'm still not that sold on Brundage's striking itself. So I don't think that Mansur Abdul-Malik really needs to worry too much about Brundage's striking. Maybe Brundage could get some offensive wrestling going against Mansur Abdul-Malik. We did see that kind of work when Wes Schultz was doing that on the Contender Series, but I do think that Mansur Abdul-Malik does get it done in the first round here. I think he does get some sort of like another sort of TKO up against the cage. Maybe not necessarily Nick Klein style, but maybe on the feet, I think he can land something big and then finish it off. So I'm going to go Mansur Abdul-Malik by KO. And now we have Cody Garbrandt taking on Raoni Barcelos. And to my surprise, Garbrandt is actually the underdog in this matchup at plus 165 at the time of recording. And I think I can understand why. You know, Barcelos is coming off a big performance where he did beat Peyton Talbot, which I was pretty surprised by. I think a lot of people were pretty surprised by. But, like, hindsight's always 2020. But Barcelos is a Brazilian national wrestling champion for a reason, and he has always kind of been that number 16 ranked guy for a reason. And when you do look at Cody Garbrandt's most recent career, where he actually has struggled is in the wrestling. He was looking fantastic against Davison Figueiredo at UFC 300 on the feet, but the way that Figgy was able to beat him was with the grappling. Of course, he ended up submitting him, but even in the first round, Figgy, despite having a very big size disadvantage, was able to take down Cody Garbrandt in that matchup. But the thing is, with Raoni Barcelos, is even in that matchup against Peyton Talbot, Talbot was still able to get some success on the feet, even though it did kind of look like Talbot was giving up in moments because Barcelos was just beating him, honestly. But I think that Garbrandt, he's got the power in the pocket. If he does truly believe in himself, he does let the hands go, and he does look good when he lets the hands go, but not too much. You know, that's been the bane of his career at the championship level, was letting the hands go too much against Dillashaw. Twice he did it. And then he did it again repeatedly and got knocked out. But Barcelos isn't going to knock him out, I don't think. I think this is kind of a case where Cody Garbrandt is going to have a big size advantage over Barcelos. He should be able to defend most of the takedowns from Barcelos. And I think on the feet he is going to have a pretty good boxing advantage. I think that we are going to see Garbrandt have a pretty good performance here as the underdog. I do like the fight for him. And especially considering Barcelos has now got a pretty big name behind him, you know, that he just beat Peyton Talbot. And we have Shabazian taking on Andre Petroski. I do not understand how the UFC middleweight division just keeps letting Petroski going on win streaks. It doesn't make sense to me, man. Andre Petroski, he doesn't have technical striking. He doesn't have, like, insane wrestling. What he's got is a lot of toughness, a lot of grit, a lot of willpower, pretty good pressure, and very solid pure grappling. If Andre Petroski can get the fight down to the ground against Edmund Shabazian, which is pretty easily done, I think, at this point, in Edmund Shabazian's career, in fact, throughout Edmund Shabazian's entire career, we probably see Petroski get another win here. But the thing is about Petroski is the striking it is pretty ugly, I will be honest. It's not great, it's a lot of hooks, it's a lot of left hooks, it's kind of all he throws ever. And I think that he's very stiff on the feet. So as long as Petroski is on the feet, I think Shabazian's going to be pretty live to knock him out. Shabazian's always been pretty dynamic on the feet, pretty fast, pretty good kickboxing, kind of got all of those options. Stylistically, not the best matchup for Shabazian. I think if you are betting on Edmund Shabazian at minus 190, I don't love the deal. I don't. Just given the fact that we do have a pretty big written history of Shabazian falling to grapplers before. But I do think that in this matchup, this is kind of like a situation where Shabazian is going to have such a significant striking advantage. I think he should be able to get the finish here in this matchup. Now in the co-main event, we've got Rose Namajunas fighting against Miranda Maverick. And I didn't realize how sneaky this 4-fight win streak of Miranda Maverick's has been. It has been pretty impressive. And, you know, she has made a lot of improvements, I think, from the past, where she has lost close decisions, which she potentially could have won if she was just a little bit more aggressive and stuff like that. But the thing about this matchup is I do actually like it for Rose. I do think that Rose is still showing, despite kind of like I guess a regression, you could almost say, with Rose Namajunas. She's moved up to 125. I don't think the move has probably been as fruitful as she probably expected it to be. But I do think that she should still be able to defend the takedowns of Maverick. Maverick is not a big fighter at 125 pounds. She probably couldn't make 115, I don't think, but 5'3" in height is not very tall for this weight class. And we are going to see Rose Namajunas now actually be able to have a little bit of a height advantage. I mean, being 5'5", Rose Namajunas likes to still fight from range. And I think she should be able to do that against Maverick. Now, I do understand that Betsam is picking Maverick as his underdog opportunity, which is pretty cool, like plus 240, I think he got her. So I do respect picking the big underdog is your underdog opportunity, but personally, I am going to still be going with Rose. The thing about Miranda Maverick is we have in the past seen the wrestling not really work. Even in the win streak, we have seen the wrestling not really work all that much too. And I think that Rose Namajunas, we have seen her fight this kind of style before and beat this sort of style before. And on the feet, Namajunas has nothing to worry about. The problem with Rose, though, is she's just so... I don't really think this is the right word, but I can't think of much at the moment. Like, volatile, like her sort of... Like, she's got a lot, like a big family situation going on that a lot of people give her problems for. And it does come out in the cage. It really does. And I think that, you know, sometimes Rose Namajunas has a great performance, and then sometimes she doesn't, like when she fought against Carla Esparza, which is something I'm still going to worry about. You know, you never know when that's going to happen again, unfortunately. But I don't think that Rose Namajunas wins this fight against Maverick. Now we have Kamaru Usman fighting against Joaquin Buckley. Now, Joaquin Buckley, he served me well in the past. You know, I have bet money on him against Stephen Thompson, and then I bet on him against Colby Covington. No, I didn't bet on him against Stephen Thompson. I bet on him against Covington. I apologize. And that was quite good. In that moment, I actually bet on him to win by KO, so he got the TKO. Very, very good stuff. He's been on the Unk domination run, though. You know, he's going to be fighting Kamaru Usman, old enough to be my father. He's just beaten Stephen Thompson. I think Stephen Thompson's even older. Definitely old enough to be my father. You know, so he's kind of been fighting these guys of, I guess you could say, like the previous generation of welterweight, you know, because if you really think about it, not even that long ago, like maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was Kamaru Usman at the top. Some people, which is crazy, were saying that he was the greatest welterweight of all time, when quite literally the greatest fighter of all time. Put his legacy in stone at welterweight, being Georges St. Pierre. That's my opinion anyway. I know some people probably have other people that they have on their GOAT list, but for me, it is number one GSP. But anyways, a lot of people, 4 years ago, people were saying that Kamaru Usman was like one of the greatest of all time. And who was up there on the top when Kamaru Usman was at the top? It was guys like Stephen Thompson when he was having his trilogy, I think it was. Or was it just a rematch against Tyron Woodley? And then Usman took over. And it was Colby Covington who had his run with Kamaru Usman. So, like, Buckley, as much as we're giving him a lot of shade for just beating the old guys, which he is doing, let's be honest, at the same time, though, these guys were the best of the best only 4 years ago. Not that long ago. But I do think that Kamaru Usman's run at the top is over. And I felt like it has been over for a while now. I did pick Leon Edwards to beat him in their rematch. I did pick Leon Edwards to beat him in their trilogy. And majority decision. Edwards won 4 rounds and lost the point. So, you know, Edwards won that fight pretty clearly. And then against Chimaev, this is where things get interesting. Because it's because of this fight in particular that I think some people think that Usman might still have quite a bit in the tank. And I also think it's because of that fight that I think our opinion of Chimaev has changed a lot. You know, when the going gets tough with Chimaev, like against Burns, like against Usman, we don't know if the cardio really is all there. However, though, just looking at Usman right now, Usman for years now hasn't been able to run. He's got bad knees. He doesn't really wrestle as much as he used to because he's got bad knees. Like, everything you hear about Usman is that he's injured, that he's got something going on. I don't know why he hasn't fought for the last 18 months. I know he took some damage against Chimaev, but, you know, like, why didn't he fight, like, 2-3 months ago, maybe? Like, did he just not get an opportunity? Did he not get the call? Like, has he been injured? What's up with that? Whereas Joaquin Buckley's been active, you know, he's been, as I said, he's been fighting the greats of the division only a few years ago, really. And I think he's about to take out another one. I think that Buckley, we've seen that the takedown defense is very good. We've seen that the aggression on the feet is very good. We've seen improvements from Buckley as well. Probably more improvements from Buckley than, like, nearly really any other fighter. Because if you guys do remember, he did fight at 185 pounds for a bit, dropped down to 170, and he's just been on a tear right now, and he is looking very, very good. Sorry, I just had to take a deep breath there. As you guys know, I am a little bit ill. And he's been looking good, you know, even Luke. I don't think Luke ever really was, like, the number one guy. But it was only a few years ago, again, where Luke was, like, a top 10, top sort of 5 guy. And even Luke is one of those guys you could say is one of the greats of just the previous era of 170 pounds. So yeah, I think that Buckley gets another one here. I think that he can defend Usman's takedowns. I think Usman as well. I think a lot of people may potentially be surprised that we're not going to see Usman wrestle all that much. You know, we haven't really seen him do that. I know everyone's going to go on about his jab. I think that's, I mean, do I say it on camera? I think that's probably one of the most overrated, I guess, moves in MMA history is Usman's jab. But, you know, I think that Buckley can get past it. If Buckley can't get past it, then I'll take it back. But, yeah, I think that Buckley goes out there. I think he does knock out Kamaru Usman this weekend. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I apologize for the video not being that high quality. I'm sorry. But I will see you guys in the next one.